Alright, we're going to be checking out this MSI Mag Velox 300R. This is the black version. I am an official MSI reseller, just so you know, but I've been wanting to give MSI a little bit more credit, use a bit more of their products. Even though I'm a reseller, I just use whatever. But they have a lot of interesting things going on. I got really excited over the 5090 Lightning. I wish we could have had a little bit more control over the memory. That's alright. But that's what this build is going to be going into. Hopefully, that's what it's going into. If it fits. If everything fits. Obviously, that's going to be the toughest part. It's making sure that everything fits. Everything goes together. So, in the box that comes in the bottom, not too much here. Simple stuff. Zip ties here. Straps. Extra clips, so I'm sure it'll attach somewhere. All the standoffs, actually labeled standoff. I wonder if they labeled the standoff screws. Because if you built any PCs in the last few years, they don't always label the screws. PSU shroud. Okay. A little bit more detailed than most companies. SSD. Motherboard, SSD, very nice. Small touches like that just make building a little bit easier rather than just getting a whole bunch of stuff and not having any idea what it's supposed to be used for. So, standard stuff here. Well, we have tempered glass, which is nice. Pops open like most cases nowadays. Yep. Just captive, no screws, comes right off. So the big thing, this case is built for being able to do the zero connectors on the front. So you do have that ability. I'm really interested in, will the 1600 watt power supply fit? So already, non-captive, not a deal breaker, but not my favorite. I'd prefer if everything was captive and you couldn't just set down a screw and lose it. But if you're careful, that's usually never an issue. Let's see if I figured out how to open up the power supply cage already. I do like this, it comes apart, and you can mount fans here, which is nice. I think that's a nice touch. I really think there's going to be enough space in here for this. I'm not as worried as I was. Interesting here is the special fans that they use for this case. See if this all comes with it. Just like you'd expect in 2026. This is really nice metal. Plenty of perforation there. Magnetic. Everything's just coming apart with no tools. These separate fan blades. Very big fans for one in the front. Love it. These type of fans will glow very nicely also, which is awesome. So just all around pretty nice. There is some technology behind these fans that I did read up on a bit, but again, this is my first time even using this case. I've used a ton of Lee, a ton of Corsair, NZXT, off-brand stuff. I've done a couple MSI builds with some of the older stuff, but not big boy case like this. Again, USB-C on top, USB-A, LED controls. You don't always get LED controls. I'll have to see if that requires the MSI software, which is one of the weaker points. with the MSI anything is their software. I've had to uninstall it a few times just to get it to not crash a PC. The big thing I was worried about is the Lightning has its own radiator. CPU, probably gonna have a radiator. I prefer custom loops. I do mostly custom loops, but with the Lightning, unless the Lightning X, when that comes out, doesn't have its own radiator or is not as expensive and they make a water block for it, then I might do custom loop. But AIO, I think radiator should go on the top. Also, what I wanted to see is if this is compatible with 140 mil fans, which I assume in 2026, a case this large is going to be compatible with 140, if not larger. Let's see if these come out easily or not. Let's see. There might be another screw somewhere. Take off this back panel. Let's see. That going on back here. Very typical. Nice cutouts. All the tape, not sure why. Maybe just for shipping. I don't know what those need to be. Yeah, they're magnetic, so these are probably just there to hold for shipping. Which I'd probably just take these off if I'm running them with radiators on them for better airflow. Let's see, what do we got here? Cables, very standard. I do like it when any cables that are going to be seen on the motherboard side have a little bit more class than just that. It's not my favorite. Obviously, HD audio, always that way for whatever reason. Still can't innovate these cables or get heat shrink that works differently, or just a piece of plastic connector that doesn't terminate that way. So nice flat USB 3.0, USB-C rather. You know, just fairly decent cables. It's not a wildly expensive case. You can't expect a ton. I guess this would be for the LED controller. There's some RGB, addressable RGB there. LED connector there for, I guess, there may be lighting somewhere. Maybe up here. Oh, maybe that's for the controller. The controller button anyway. Which is always just a nice feature. You know, sometimes you don't want a million points of software on your computer just for lights even. You want some lights, but you don't care to sit there and have a bunch of stuff. One other thing that's awesome here, these fans have switches for speed. So that's a really nice touch. Looks like there's quite a bit of adjustment for height on this. But it looks like you may have to remove some covers. Again, just the ease of use to do in there. Yeah, it looks like there's these plastic covers that are one size, so if you decide you need to move those fans in one direction or the other, you're gonna lose your shrouds. Not that you couldn't get, you know, stuff like this 3D printed fairly easily nowadays. So with that, you know, yeah, depending on what I need, depending on the airflow that I need, where I want it the most, because I'm probably going, like I said, lightning card here, radiator there, exhausting. These are going to intake. So if this is intaking, that radiator is probably going to take all the air. I can put, like I said, with this here, I would have to put the power supply face down AKA meaning that it's going to pull air from the bottom of the chassis to cool itself. If I put fans here blowing upward, it's going to determine if I can do that depending on where the lightning card sits in this configuration on this case. Anytime I do that though, intake, I've been using, I know this is very traditionally an exhaust back here. Typically what I've been doing recently is using these as intakes. Right now with the configuration as I want to run it, I like to have all my radiators blowing the hot air out of the case. I don't like pushing hot air from the components back into the case to get exhausted through another radiator when I want freshest air on that radiator. Each case is different. Some cases are easier to get that done than others. Again, if I have a AIO radiator here, radiator there, that is going to be 360, 720 worth of radiator space that's exhausting. You always want positive air pressure, and with a 280 mil, what's that, 560, and then a 120, it's not meeting the requirement of getting positive air pressure in the case more so than exhausting it, especially when this fresh air is probably going to get soaked by that radiator in the top there and maybe a little bit here. So if that gets there, this manages to get a little bit air through over here, which is just going to be pulled up. This is going to be pushing in, probably going right into the radiator here. So this is probably going to cool one section of the radiator in the top. If I can get fans here, I can do it, but if the card sits too low or whatever bracket, the card comes tomorrow, I'll be able to figure that out. That may be an issue. Looks like this bracket comes out. I might be able to fit a fan there. Again, if I put a fan there and blow it up, and that's blowing out, that's going to take all of it with it. So it's a little tough. That's why I prefer custom loops. You can direct a lot of the airflow where you want it. But having two AIO in the same system is going to be tough. But you know, it's all fun. It's all for fun. So, but we're going to have to see this build. This build's coming up. MSI Lightning 5090X 32 gig with a 9950X 3D MSI case, MSI carbon board. I was going to do the Ace. At this point, you know, it's already on splurge mode, so maybe, I don't know, I haven't purchased anything yet, so we'll see what happens. But through my distributors, what is available is the carbon. I can get the Ace from Amazon. It is on sale, $50 off, and it is a new board. It is new. The one thing, and I like power. So when they announced the Lightning for 1,000 watts, dual 12 pin, had to get it. The motherboard for the X870E Ace has an additional 6-pin power for the board next to the 24 pin, and a little more traditional add-on, you know, an 8-pin PCI Express power at the bottom of the motherboard, which you've seen before. You don't really see 6-pin additional power next to the 24 pin. That's the only thing pulling me towards it, but I was like, do I spend an additional $250 to power the board? That's a tough question. Without having data, I don't think anyone, I looked around, no one's like addressing it, no one's saying, oh, you need that, you know. But how many people are running 9950X 3D? That's the only question. Maybe that's one of the chips that would use it. It's one of the premium chip for desktop, retail desktop. So we'll see what happens. that's just some of the thought processes that I go through. And you know, I've had this case sitting in my store for a week or two, and I've looked at it online. I haven't opened it until now, but I just wanted to see. And I'll always look at a case and I'll sit there and plan and plot and decide, try and decide like, okay, is this gonna fit there? Is that not? I just got this driving me crazy. This is so tight. Everything else I'm able to do by hand. But this is, again, GPU anti-sag bracket built into the case, and it can be removed. Looks like there's 2 screws back here. So you can do different heights, different things there, which is nice. This is easy to execute, easy to do. This screw right here might be hard, so you'd have to determine the angle, which is nice that this is like very maneuverable, so you can get it. Typically you want to not support the graphics card on the end over here. So not my favorite. Typically, if you're supporting a GPU, the GPU might be this long, the shroud of the fan and the cooler is this long, and the PCB is like maybe yay long. You want to support it around the PCB, hopefully where there's a screw mounted to the PCB, because then you're actually supporting the full card. Whereas over here, this can like bend. Obviously, with the amount of copper and metal and stuff in a lot of these cards now, they're not going to bend, but the best spot is usually around the PCB. So this isn't the greatest, but it's better than nothing. And the fact that it's built in and it's not in the front, it's kind of like hidden in the back, very nice. So my first impressions so far, pretty decent case. Having these little grommets is nice. Big old fans in the front, fan controller, fans with their own speed control. Interesting. See what I'll set it to. Overall, you know, there's some flex in it. It's not the thickest, it's not the most robust. Again, this case isn't even over $200, and you're getting, you know, LED switches and big fans. You're getting, you know, 3 fans, fairly customizable. Also, very large power supply cage down here. Power supply will have to be put in from the back side, the back panel on that side. There's no cover here. Typical base for a filter. But yeah, I think this will fit the bill. And I wanted to keep it as much MSI as possible. With that lightning, I have to decide what I'm going to do. But I never did get this top piece off. But I will have to decide what I'm going to do about the motherboard, especially since the card is coming in tomorrow. For whatever reason, it's got to be because these connectors and stuff are here. This thing doesn't slide. A lot of cases nowadays, these slide. That's what I was trying to get it to do. Maybe this will just pop up. And these screws are at least captive. Okay, so this is going to pop up. This is not going to slide like a lot of them. So again, they taped all this stuff, but this is all magnetic. Yeah, so you know, fairly standard stuff here. 120. So this can do 140 with radiators, which is what I wanted to see. Because since I'm not doing custom loop, you know, I'm gonna look for an AIO that can do what is it, 420? Is that the so yeah, a lot of things to always consider when you're building a PC. It's not just PC part picker, click a list, and hit buy. There's a million things to consider. When you have coolers, you have the motherboard of your choice, the power supply of your choice. Is it going to be compatible? What kind of widths, distances, fans do I need to get? But this is what I do. I agonize over builds long before I even start looking at purchasing anything. I'll consider and ponder and decide, what do I really want to do, and what's the overall aesthetic that I'm looking for. Like originally, that 9950 X3D was supposed to go into a custom water-cooled build with all gold accents, gold fittings, all that sort of stuff. And that didn't happen. They just kind of like sat on it. And then they announced the Lightning a year later. So they announced the Lightning. I managed to get one. And no, MSI did not care that I'm authorized reseller with them. I was in the retail channels. I didn't even get it through MSI. I got it through Newegg on launch day. So, yeah, I this is the standard case. This isn't like the craziest case to look at ever. Just a couple nice little design things. The dragon, dragons are always awesome. Who doesn't love dragons? But yeah, I think it'll look cool. Imagine it now, and we'll get to the point where we're doing the build. That's the power supply. So, yeah, this is one of the biggest power supplies I've ever put into a PC, and I've done dual SLI builds before. This is just absolutely a massive power supply. The only other one I was looking at was the Super Flower, which is one that I've used for a long time. They've been a really good OEM builder for power supplies, often hidden by brands like Corsair and stuff like that. They've been behind the scenes building a lot of the power supplies, but they have a 1700 watt one, which is probably $200 to $300 cheaper than this even. But again, want to keep it MSI 1600 watt. I don't even know if this is platinum. I'm going to assume that this is a platinum, but if it's gold, I wouldn't be surprised. Nope, this is 80 plus titanium. So even better. Very efficient. If it's pulling the watts, it's going to be pulling close, as close to it possibly can. If it's pulling 100 watts at 50%, probably going to get like 98 watts. So not going to lose too much there. But pretty awesome power supply. Going to be an awesome build. Stay tuned. Episode 1.